Hi there, welcome to Milk and Meat Livestream. I'm Sean Griffin. This is my lovely wife, Lindsey.
Hey guys, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, sweetie.
Shabbat Shalom, babe.
For those of you who celebrate Shabbat, we just want to hope that you have a great day of rest. If you're not celebrating Shabbat, we hope that you look into it so that you can enjoy rest. It's great. The Father gave us a day of rest. So we want to thank everyone that's joined us in the chat tonight. We're going to be talking about numbers 33 through 36. So basically, like we did our Kingdom Portions series where we went through the Torah portions in a year, but because of last year, my wife was out because of surgery, so we weren't able to finish this last portion. So we're going to do that tonight because people have been asking us, where's the end of Numbers? Like, where's the rest of your Numbers Kingdom Portions? So we're gonna try to do that tonight, guys.
Yeah, and, only a year after the fact.
Yeah. We do want to finish it. Better late than never, I guess. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Looks like we have Master Soup's back tonight. Welcome, brother. Kelly J, Lia's Salty Crew, Vicky Lott, West Plays Music. Welcome, everybody. Someone 19's back. The Great Deception. Welcome. And Tim with the last name I can't pronounce. Welcome. Beloved Brethren's here. David Shearer. Welcome, everyone. Howard Sanford, Ben Schwagel, Creation Bear. Love Ya, Carly McGann. Welcome, everybody. All right. So, do you want to jump right into this?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a short disclaimer. If Sean and I are clearing our throats or any congestion that you hear going on, it's just there's a massive fire going on in the mountain range just to the west of us. And Fort Collins is just like basically covered in smoke right now. And we have got ash falling from the sky and everything. So it's not like apocalyptic or anything, but it's definitely enough to cause some congestion. So I just want to apologize in advance if you hear any throat clearing or things like that we just can't mute the mic for. And on that note, if you guys would just please pray for rain in the area of Cameron Pass in northern Colorado. Also down near Grand Junction is like a 30,000 acre fire that's been burning for around 2 weeks now. So if you just pray for some rain for Colorado, we'd appreciate that. So
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, we literally like ash falling on us as we're going about in our backyard today. So,
yeah.
All right, guys. Tonight's Numbers chapter 33 through 36. Let me pull it up for everyone to look at. And I'm going to read this first chapter because it's got a whole bunch of words that are really hard to say. And I usually submit myself to that embarrassment. So if you'll follow along with us here, it's verse 1. Verse 1, it says, "These are the journeys of the sons of Israel by which they came out from the land of Egypt by their armies, under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded their starting places according to their journeys by the command of the Lord, and these are their journeys according to their starting places. They journeyed from Ramesses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. On the next day, after the Passover, the sons of Israel started out boldly in the sight of all the Egyptians, while the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them. The Lord had also executed judgment on their gods. Then the sons of Israel journeyed from Ramesses and camped in Sukkot. They journeyed from Sukkot and camped in Etham, which is on the edge of the wilderness. They journeyed from Etham and turned back to Pi-hahirot, which faces Baal-Zephon, and they camped before Migdol. They journeyed from before Hiharath. I can't even say this. They journeyed from before Hahirot and passed through the midst of the sea into the wilderness. And they went 3 days' journey into the wilderness of Etham and camped at Marah. And verse 9 through 21 says, they journeyed from Marah and came to Elam. And in Elam there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there. They journeyed from Elam and camped by the Red Sea. They journeyed from the Red Sea and camped in the wilderness of Zin. They journeyed from the wilderness of Zin and camped at Dobka. They journeyed from Dobka and camped at Alush. They journeyed from Alush and camped at Rephidim. Now it was there that the people had no water to drink. They journeyed from Rephidim and camped in the wilderness of Sinai. They journeyed from the wilderness of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattaavah. They journeyed from Kibroth Hattaavah and camped at Hazeroth. They journeyed from Hazeroth and camped at Rithmah. They journeyed from Rithmah and camped at Rimmon Perez. They journeyed from Rimmon Perez and camped at Libnah. They journeyed from Libnah and camped at Rizah. They journeyed from Rizah and camped in Kehelatah. They journeyed from Kehelatah and camped at Mount Sephir. They journeyed from Mount Shepher and camped at Haradah. Then they journeyed from Haradah and camped at Makalot. They journeyed from Makalat, I don't know, and camped at Tahat. They journeyed from Tahat and camped at Terah. They journeyed from Terah and camped at Mitka. They journeyed from Mitka and camped at Hashmonah. They journeyed from Hashmonah and camped at Moserat. They journeyed from Moserat and camped at Bene Jekan. They journeyed from Bene Jekan and camped at Or Hagidgad. They it sounds like Korean. They journeyed from Hor Hagidgad and camped at Jotbatah. They journeyed from Jotbatah and camped at Ebrona. They journeyed from Ebrona and camped at Ezion Geber. They journeyed from Ezion Geber and camped at the wilderness of Zin, that is Kadesh. They journeyed from Kadesh and camped on Mount Or at the edge of the land of Edom. Then Aaron, the priest, went up to Mount Or at the command of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the sons of Israel had come from the land of Egypt, on the first day in the first month. Aaron was, isn't that interesting?
First day in the fifth month.
Excuse me, on the first day in the 5th month. After Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Or. Now the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negev in the land of Canaan, he heard of the coming of the sons of Israel. And then they journeyed from Mount Or and camped at Zalmunna. They journeyed from Zalmunna and camped at Punon. They journeyed from Punon and camped at Obat. They journeyed from Obat and camped at Ai Abarim, at the border of Moab. They journeyed from Aim and camped at Dibon Gad. They journeyed from Dibon Gad and camped at Almon Diblethem. No idea if I think I said that one wrong. 47 through 53.
Sounds like you've been given the gift of tongues, babe.
Yeah, it's the gift of transliterated Hebrew into English. Verse 47, they journeyed from Almon Diblethaim and camped in the mountains of Abarim before Nebo. They journeyed from the mountains of Abarim and camped in the plains of Moab by the Jordan opposite Jericho. They camped by the Jordan from Beth Jeshimah as far as Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. Then the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan opposite Jericho, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, When you cross over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their figured stones, and destroy all their molten images, and demolish all their high places. And you shall take no possession of the land and live in it. And you shall take possession of the land and live in it, for I have given you the land to possess it. You shall inherit the land by lot according to your families. To the larger you shall give more inheritance. To the smaller you shall give less inheritance. Wherever the lot falls to anyone, that shall be his. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come about that those whom you let remain of them will become as pricks in your eyes and as thorns in your sides. They will trouble you in the land in which you live. As I plan to do to them, so I will do to you. Okay.
Ooh.
This is a lot here. This is a lot. So, yes, it does sound like Korean a little bit, doesn't it? This is what Ben Schwagel was saying.
Yeah.
It does, but it's basically just because we're not reading it in original Hebrew, we're reading it in transliterated English, so it doesn't come across the same.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Paul. I was looking at this comment real quick, but Paul, we really appreciate it, brother. I have no idea what that is, but praise God, man. We appreciate your donation.
Yeah, I don't recognize the symbol.
I don't either. I don't know what that is, but we really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for blessing us. So I'm just going to say, sweetie, do you have any thoughts about this particular chapter? We seem to have waypoints of a whole bunch of coordinates where they camped over 40 years.
Yes.
Anything stick out to you that you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I've always found it interesting that just after the Passover, the first place that they went to after that is called Sukkoth.
Yeah.
Which is Sukkot.
Yeah.
So I just have always found that interesting. I know you and I tried to look into the names of all the cities they went to, and you kind of lose the idea throughout there. But
what I tried to do was I took there was a whole bunch of them, but I went through the first 6 or 7, and it seemed to be very interesting with the meanings of the names of the places they stopped and camped in comparison to the gospel of the kingdom,
right?
Which is we're in metaphoric terms, we're exodus out through the resurrection. We're taken out like an exodus through the resurrection from the wrath of the Lamb.
Yeah, we're passed over.
We're passed over on the day of the Lord. So, and where we go is our eternal tabernacle, the New Jerusalem, which is our Sukkot.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's beautiful to us. So that seems to be parallel with what they did coming out of Egypt. I also thought it was interesting that, Aaron dies before Moses. Now, he was a couple years older than Moses anyway, but he also dies like before they even really get into the land. And then they journeyed on a little bit more after that. And I don't know if it's because of it mentioned the king of Arad, the Canaanite, knew they were coming in the land. And then it just skips and it goes to something else. It doesn't really give any follow-up why it mentioned that detail, unless it's to say this is why then they picked up and kept moving other places, as the cloud would pick up and then just instruct them to move because it's trying to protect them. Possibly. That's just kind of a speculation. Put in the comments, guys, what you might think of why it mentioned the king of Arad, which was one of the Canaanite kings, just like randomly in the middle of all that, after Aaron died. But then, of course, we're going to get to Moses dying later before they truly go into the land. Right. Which was what was promised back in, what was it?
At the waters of Meribah?
Numbers 5 or 6. I can't remember, but
it's because of what happened at the waters of Meribah.
Yeah, where they, instead of speaking to the rock, he struck it twice. And he kind of overstepped his boundaries in front of the people while representing Yahweh. Right. So it was a punishment on both the leadership of Moses and Aaron.
So was Aaron included in that prophecy that he would not see the land either? Is this a consequence for him? Or does he just happen to die of old age before they enter the land? Do you recall?
No, I'm pretty sure he was included in that. Okay. You guys remember, put in the comments, was Aaron included in Moses's punishment for being promised not to step into the land? Your chair is all getting in the green screen here. I'm trying to. There we go.
I'll get my burrito shirt in front of it.
There you go. We have to go look up that verse. I don't remember specifically. I do know that also it talks about. I think it's interesting anyway that he's telling them right here, right at the end of this chapter. I want you to drive out these people, tear down their stone altars, their high places, everything that their molten images, remove all the idolatry from the land. If you don't, you're going to receive what I plan to do to them. It's also going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, guys, and this might sound a little modern. It's kind of a modern thought that came to mind because I was listening to interviews about some of the protests and riots that are going on across the United States. And there's a large people group that want to support a specific movement that's attached to just like the mantra of BLM.
Right.
But they refuse to acknowledge that mantra that they are shouting is connected to an actual organization called BLM, who has Marxist goals stated.
Yeah,
Marxist
clearly,
goals.
Openly stated.
Like their actual charter, they call for a destruction of the society and to instill through Marxism. They want to just, everything about our way of life. They wanted to dismantle that, including our system of order and structure through, police force. But the people that seem to be quote unquote walking alongside them in these riots claim that, we're not they're the violent ones. We're just doing this for the cultural,
for the message
for the message. But yet it's like they're just ignoring the fact that the people they're right next to are doing criminal activity. So of course you're going to get lumped in with people doing criminal activity if you're walking down the street with them and you're not stopping them from doing criminal activity.
Right.
You show up in the same clothing, screaming the same things, and not stopping them from doing criminal activity. Of course you're going to get lumped into them. And this is kind of like the same idea that I'm seeing Yahweh tell the sons of Israel. Look, if you're going to let these people live next to you in the land and you don't drive out them or their idolatry, then you're going to get what's coming to them.
Right.
So it's natural consequence of life. Yeah, MPC, we definitely understand that Aaron was not guiltless in the situations.
Yeah, not
he had a lot
at
of
all.
issues.
He wasn't told at that sin of the golden calf. He wasn't told because of this you won't pass into the land, I don't believe. So I was just wondering if he was included in that prophecy about Moses.
Joy said it was in Exodus.
Dying.
Let me see. No, that's not it either. But either way, they were both part of the leadership, and they both did not honor Yahweh in the moment where he told them to speak to the rock and water would flow out. And earlier in the book of Numbers, and I apologize because what was that? When we did the book of Numbers, that kingdom portion, that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
but off the top of my head, I don't remember the specific verse off the top of my head. But either way, they're both, as a leadership, they were both told they're not going to cross over the Jordan, enter into the land of promise. So this is why they die before that happens.
Yet they'll both be part of the resurrection.
Yeah.
So they'll go into the real promised land. So some people, might be confused by if there's some sort of prophetic meeting to Moses and Aaron not being able to enter the promised land at that time. But if you don't understand that the actual promised land is the New Jerusalem that comes down from the sky, then there might be a problem there. But once you understand, Moses and Aaron understood, they, just like Abraham understood, they were waiting for resurrection into the city built by God. So.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it, brother. He said his Japanese yen. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate that. That's a blessing.
What time is it in Japan right now?
Yeah, in Japan?
I think it's probably pretty late over there.
It could be early. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Because I know that whenever we speak to the programmers in India, it's like morning time when it's evening over here. So it could be just a couple hours ahead of that. All right. So you want to read chapter 35?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. This is our first time to ever do Kingdom Portion Concepts live. So we're trying to look at some of the comments that are happening. But at the same time, I guess we got to keep pace with how much we have to actually read.
Just to comment to you, NPC 3.14, I'm familiar with the Fabian Society. So yeah, anyone reading the chat, that's actually a pretty interesting topic to look into. Okay, so I'll go to chapter 35.
It's chapter 34.
Oh. All right. I was subconsciously trying to skip over this chapter because I'm not escaping the funny names either. All right. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command the sons of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you as an inheritance, even the land of Canaan according to its borders. Your southern sector shall extend from the wilderness of Zin along the side of Edom, and your southern border shall extend from the end of the Salt Sea eastward. Then your border shall turn direction from the south to the ascent of Akrabim and continue to Zin, and its termination shall be to the south of Kadesh Barnea, and it shall reach Hazaradar and continue to Asmon. The border shall turn direction from Asmon to the brook of Egypt, and its termination shall be at the sea. As for the western border, you shall have the great sea, that is, its coastline. This shall be your west border. And this shall be your north border. You shall draw your border line from the great sea to Mount Or. You shall draw a line from Mount Or to the Lebo Hamath, and the termination of the border shall be at Zedad. And the border shall proceed to Ziphron, and its termination shall be at Hazaranan. This shall be your north border. For your eastern border, you shall also draw a line from Hazaranan to Shepham, and the border shall go down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of Ain, and the border shall go down and reach to the slope on the east side of the She of Chinnereth. And the border shall go down to the Jordan, and its termination shall be at the Salt Sea. This shall be your land according to its borders all around. So Moses commanded the sons of Israel, saying, This is the land that you are to apportion by lot among you as a possession, which the Lord has commanded to give to the 9.5 tribes. For the tribe of the sons of Reuben have received theirs according to their fathers' households, and the tribe of the sons of Gad according to their fathers' households, and the half tribe of Manasseh have received their possession. The 2.5 tribes have received their possession across the Jordan opposite Jericho, eastward toward the sun rising. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, These are the names of the men who shall apportion the land to you for inheritance: Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun. You shall take 1 leader of every tribe to apportion the land for inheritance. These are the names of the men: the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Jephunneh; of the tribe of the sons of Simeon, Samuel the son of Ammihud; of the tribes of Benjamin, Elidad the son of Chislon; of the tribe of the sons of Dan, a leader, Buki the son of Jogli; of the sons of Joseph, of the tribe of the sons of Manasseh, a leader, Haniel the son of Ephod; of the tribe of the sons of Ephraim, a leader, Kemuel the son of Shiftan; of the tribe of the sons of Zebulun, a leader, Elizaphan the son of Parnak. Of the tribe of the sons of Issachar, a leader, Paltiel, the son of Azan. Of the tribe of the sons of Asher, a leader, Ahihud, the son of Shalomai. Of the tribe of the sons of Naphtali, a leader, Pedahel, the son of Ammihud. These are those whom the Lord commanded to apportion the inheritance to the sons of Israel in the land of Canaan.
All right. Thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
We didn't have a whole lot to say about that one because it's basically land of portions. We've actually talked about this in previous episodes. There's not an entire incredible amount to say about that specifically, but we had a good question that popped up while you were reading.
Okay.
So Sean N is asking, did Moses get that it may be thousands of years for his kingdom to be delivered? Since we were talking about he didn't go into the land of Canaan,
right,
but yet he's definitely going to be in the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
So there's punishment in this lifetime for our mistakes. That doesn't mean that your eternal punishment is going to be taken away.
Right.
Right. This is what, Hebrews 12, the Father disciplines the sons he loves,
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest the answer to this, Sean M, is that yes, Moses knew, not just because he saw the kingdom, as Hebrews 8, 1-5 explains, he patterned the furniture in the tabernacle after the one that's in heaven above. That's going to be in the kingdom of heaven above as well in the future. That comes down to the ground, but also in the book of Enoch,
Mm-hmm.
it talks about the land that goes for the inheritance of the saints, and it actually explains that there's this prophecy of the 10 weeks in which all the unfolding of from Enoch's day to the end of the millennial reign, when all that happens. In fact, I've done a short video on it from our Kingdom Cast videos. It's called Enoch Prophesy, the short Enoch prophecies of Enoch's. I don't think I'm saying this right. Let me go find the title of it real quick.
And he clarifies his question later on, saying,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm just addressing the first one real quick.
Okay.
Let me just go. I'll put this in the chat for you, brother, but I actually did a video on these prophecies of Enoch, which we would surmise that Moses did have access to these books.
Yes.
And all of the patriarchs that were in Israel had access to these books as well. This is how they would have been preserved for us to find them later in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right. For Ezra to preserve them in his day as well, when he came back from Babylon. Here it is. It's Enoch's Brief Visions of the Future. I'll put this in the link for you so that you can check this out if you like. And I review that kind of concept. And then, let me see here. You could also check out our Milk and Meat that we did, where I go over Heaven's Bible was given to Jacob and Enoch. All right, I dropped this Kingdom Cast in the chat, Enoch's Brief Visions of the Future, but you can also go into our Milk and Meat playlist and look for Heaven's Bible given to Enoch and Jacob, and I explain how that was given down and how Moses and Aaron had access to that information even before they left Egypt, and how they carried it with them and all that kind of stuff. So go check that out when you have a chance. Yeah, you're welcome, brother. But ultimately, I didn't have a lot to comment on chapter 34. It's just kind of, going through the motions of delving out the tribes.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of commentary, but if you guys have any questions specifically about these tribes, let us know. The only thing that I might want to say, though, is that we're going to see how these tribes, the land that was given, is just establishing some borders for them, which is important. But we're going to talk about that in the next chapter as well, because these borders are kind of reestablished during the millennial reign, and it's told to us in the book of Ezekiel chapter 48.
Right.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would point out about this chapter is just the continued example of leadership here. So they're still dividing these inheritance by lot through leadership. So they don't just, it's not just open season, everybody just run in and grab whatever house or piece of land you'd feel like. There was still order involved and an authority structure going on there. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, we already know from previous chapters, 29 through 31 in the book of Numbers, that Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, that on the eastern side of the Jordan, they had already received their inherited lands as well. So that's some context, I guess, to remember. But I'm going to start off reading 35 real quick. All right, so here in verse 1, it says, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan opposite of Jericho, saying, Command the sons of Israel that they give to the Levites from the inheritance of their possession cities to live in, and you shall give to the Levites pasture lands around the cities. The cities shall be theirs to live in, and their pasture lands shall be for their cattle and for their herds and for all their beasts. The pasture lands of the cities which you give to the Levites shall extend from the wall of the city outward 1,000 cubits around. By the way, that's actually 2,000 in the Septuagint. The Masoretic, it's 1,000. It's kind of off because the next verse 5 says, "You shall also measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, on the south side 2,000 cubits, on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits, with the city in the center. This shall become theirs as pasture land for the cities. The cities which you shall give to the Levites shall be the 6 cities of refuge, which you shall give for the manslayer to flee to. In addition to them, you shall give 42 cities. All the cities which you shall give to the Levites shall be 48 cities, together with their pasture lands. As for the cities which you give for the possession of the sons of Israel, you shall take more from the larger, and you shall take less from the smaller. Each shall give some of his cities to the Levites in proportion to his possession, which he inherits." Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel, and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall select for yourselves cities to be cities of refuge, that the manslayer who has killed any person unintentionally may flee there. The cities shall be to you as a refuge from the avenger, so that the manslayer will not die until he stands before the congregation for trial. The cities which you are to give shall be your 6 cities of refuge. You shall give 3 cities across the Jordan and 3 cities in the land of Canaan. They are to be cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be for refuge for the sons of Israel, and for the alien and the sojourner among them, that anyone who kills a person unintentionally may flee there. But if he struck him down with an iron object so that he died, he's a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. If he struck him down with a stone in the hand, by which he will die, and as a result he died, he's a murderer, and the murderer shall be put to death. Or if he struck him with a wooden object in the hand, by which he might die, and as a result he died, he's a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. The blood avenger himself shall put the murderer to death. He shall put him to death when he meets him. If he pushed him of hatred, or threw something at him lying in wait, and as a result he died, or if he struck him down with his hand in enmity, and as a result he died, the one who struck him shall surely be put to death. He's a murderer. The blood avenger shall put the murderer to death when he meets him. But if you pushed him suddenly without enmity, or threw something at him without lying in wait, or with any deadly object of stone, and without seeing it dropped on him so that he died, while he was not his enemy nor seeking his injury, then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the blood avenger according to these ordinances. The congregation shall deliver the manslayer from the hand of the blood avenger, and the congregation shall restore him to his city of refuge to which he fled, and he shall live in it until the death of the high priest who is anointed with oil, the holy oil. But if the manslayer at any time goes beyond the border of his city of refuge to which he may flee, and the blood avenger finds him outside the border of his city of refuge, the blood avenger kills the manslayer, he will not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the manslayer shall return to the land of his possession. These things shall be for a statutory ordinance to you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. If anyone kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death at the evidence of witnesses, but no person shall be put to death on the testimony of one witness. Okay. And following the last 4 verses, it says, "Moreover, you shall not take ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. You shall not take ransom for him who has fled to his city of refuge, that he may return to live in the land before the death of the priest. So you shall not pollute the land in which you are, for blood pollutes the land, and no expiation can be made for the land for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. You shall not defile the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell, for I, the Lord, am dwelling in the midst of the sons of Israel." All right, then. So lots to talk about in this one, guys. The blood avenger, the manslayer, you have legal, basically legal statutes trying to help you understand how to deal with very, very emotional topics.
Yes.
Families are upset. The blood avenger is a family member, and the manslayer is, if he accidentally committed manslaughter, which is what manslaying is,
right,
he can run away from their family that's mad at him,
mm-hmm,
and run to a safe city so they don't kill him. But he does have to stand trial, so they have to determine that it truly was an accident.
right.
So that's, I guess, the first caveat that I want to say. If they determine it wasn't an accident, then he's a murderer, and one of their family members get to kill him. I don't know what that looks like. When he says, and the blood avenger meets him, will kill him when he meets him, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if they're literally just come up with the sword and chop his head off. I don't know if they run him through. I don't know if they apprehend him and then go take him to a place to stone him. I really, it doesn't tell us. If you guys know, you're welcome to put it in the comments in the chat. But what I do know is the first thing that you have to figure out is it manslaughter by accident, or is he truly have premeditated intentional murder?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that's why we have these cities that are set up, because the Father knows accidents happen in life. Mm-hmm. Everything we deal with is bigger than us, stronger than us, denser than us, sharper than us. Everything that we deal with can accidentally drop on us and break our arm or cut us open, or, like we read here, accidentally fall on someone's head and kill them. So with all that going on in life, the Father knows, okay, so in a perfect society where there is frail mortal mankind doing accidents, that's working too much and getting tired or whatever, and he drops the hammer and it falls on someone, it falls on a board that tips over a stone, it falls on someone's head, and you know what I'm saying, like, you just play it out like it's a bad Three Stooges. So someone gets hurt accidentally, the person that accidentally did the hurting, that did the manslaying, he at least has some sort of mercy afforded to him because of this. Mm-hmm. So what I think is what unique about this is that the Father, this is literally him in his law showing all of us, not only through his priesthood do we have that implemented in the law too, right? The normal idea of the priesthood is that you're going to mess up. Mm-hmm. That's the big general idea of the priesthood. Is that the Father knows you're going to sin and mess up, so therefore he gives you a priest.
Right.
Right? So in his law is that grace extended to you through a priest, and that mercy afforded you to avoid the punishment that you may normally receive. In this case, when it's the most severe thing that can happen, which is the loss of a person's life, knowing there's the emotions will run high from the family of the victim, he has a place to run to, but the first priority is, did he do it intentionally or was it an accident?
Right.
If it's an accident, the family cannot step into their own sin. So in a way, this not only protects the manslayer, it literally protects the family from being tempted to sin and commit murder, right? Because if they don't judge the case or evaluate it honestly, and it's just a rash moment of them lashing out and saying, "Oh my gosh, you killed, our son." I don't know, what's a good Hebrew name in the Old Testament? You killed our son Malachi, the Italian. How dare you? And they just start throwing knives at him, like it's a bad circumcision. And they're just like, because they're emotional. You see what I'm saying? Like that's the problem that the Father is trying to avoid right here. He's like, no, like I'm going to separate you guys, and I'm going to put him under the jurisdiction of the priest. And that's the part that we don't really know, guys. We just want to let you guys know. If you know in the comments, let us know. But we don't really know why the priest has jurisdiction over the manslayer until the priest dies. Because that could be anything. That could be 6 months. That could be 25 years. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really say. So if you guys know, put it in the comments, because as we were studying this, we've looked on it for several years and we've never found an answer where we can determine exactly. We understand the concept of jurisdiction, that the priests are part of the people that would presume over the trial, mm-hmm. that they're the judges. We understand that part. We've talked about it. We've taught videos on it, right? We get that part. But why is the manslayer's exile to a city of refuge dependent, or I should say,
contingent?
Contingent and in step with the life of the priest, of the high priest that's presiding during that time. So if anyone knows, you're welcome to put it in the comment, because we really don't know.
Yeah, I was joking with Sean when we were getting ready to do this portion and we read through this chapter, and I was like, this is one of those chapters that gives us an opportunity to prove people wrong who say that we're know-it-alls and we think we understand everything about Scripture. Because honestly, this is a confusing chapter. This setup is confusing. We were confused when we read about it. I'm pretty sure it's also in Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
It talks about the avenger of blood and the manslayer and the cities of refuge. And, obviously there's supposed to only be one high priest of all of Israel. So it's that one high priest who dies. It's a confusing, it's something I don't really understand as far as being able to look in the Torah at something and a law that doesn't seem to make sense and coming to an understanding of it and being able to have good apologetics for that for somebody and say, oh, actually, I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense on the surface, but here's where it fits. Mm-hmm. This is one in particular that Sean and I have not, like, we even looked into to see if Josephus talked about it at all. Not that we look to him for ultimate truth about things, but just historical things that maybe the way Jews used to practice things from the Torah. Sometimes he talks about those things, and he pretty much just repeated what, is in the scriptures. It confirmed for us that we've always assumed that the avenger of blood is actually a family member from the victim who passed, because it doesn't seem to be in the rest of scripture where there's a role like that set up within the priesthood for someone within the priesthood to be able to do that. So it's an interesting chapter, to say the least. I don't know how much insight I can really offer on it personally.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. I mean, in some way, it makes me wonder if the high priest, because he bears the sin of the people, if that's why that guy's sin is connected to his life. And so it's almost like when the high priest has died, that sin goes with him. I know that's not very concrete terms.
Yeah.
Because then the guy who accidentally killed somebody, the manslayer, he can go back to his original hometown, which you just hope the family of the person he killed has gotten over it at that point.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, what confuses me is it actually a sin to accidentally end the life of another person? I mean, if you're not because we know it's a sin to murder someone and intentionally.
Leviticus 4, you get unintentional sins. Yeah.
True, I guess. But if the command is not to murder and just not to kill, I always assumed that murder meant there's an actual intention to kill somebody.
Right. Well, this isn't murder, though. This is manslaughter.
Exactly. So,
which is unintentional. That's what started off saying that, which would put it into that Leviticus 4 concept of unintentional sins, whether personal or of the congregation.
I suppose.
So this is why we definitely understand this is why the high priest presides over the case. But at the same time, why is it connected to the life of the high priest? Why not just have it, I guess in a strange way, it seems like even more merciful that it's connected to the life of the priest, because if that high priest dies after 15 years, well, this guy can go back to his family,
right?
Because at this point, now he's living in this refuge city, which there's nothing but Levites there, which is fine, Hopefully hopefully he's around a bunch of really strong Torah observant people. Hopefully it's not like the Levite and Judges, chapter 20, but we'll get there in the future, guys. But
maybe,
yeah, maybe Judges is a tough book to go through.
It's a spicy book, is what I call
it. Maybe when we don't have to worry about all the censorship on YouTube and we can actually speak freely, we can talk about the Book of Judges. But John Williams, we understand the priest is a judge. And but what we're talking about is if anyone has a good theory or idea on why the exile of the manslayer is directly linked to the life span of the high priest who presides over his case. So that's something interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to look at it prophetically and think of Yeshua as our high priest. And I mean, there's a little bit going on there where through Yeshua dying and being raised as our eternal high priest, that's the process by which our sins are able to be completely wiped clean once we're resurrected. But this only applies in the situation of manslaughter. It doesn't apply for all other sins. So it's not really sure if anyone else has any insight they want to offer.
Yeah, Trip 2776 is asking what would be the average lifespan of a high priest. That would be, now here's the thing, they're not given that high priest position early on in their life. They have to be an elder. They have to prove themselves faithful in the Torah, or supposedly anyway. So they're not supposed to be a young man, basically. They're supposed to be an elder of the society. Paul Riggio is asking, he's not asking, but he's making a statement that I think could be worth commenting about. The 6 cities of refuge could protect individuals for a lifetime, but not for eternity. This could only be done by the 7th city of refuge, which is Zion. I do understand what you're saying, but that's not quite what we're asking as far as how it's connected to the life of the priest itself who presides over. The high priest isn't living in that city.
On this side of the resurrection is what we're talking about.
In this life, before Zion gets here, before the New Jerusalem descends, the high priest would have been wherever the tabernacle was, which was Bethel, and then later on it was, I think it was Shiloh, and then it was Jerusalem later. these 6 cities of refuge are none of those cities. They're elsewhere. So it makes you wonder why he was connected to it in some regard. But what I would like to say that your comment brought up is, it makes me think that when the New Jerusalem comes down, anyone that's mortal that accidentally kills someone outside the New Jerusalem, those who are a part of the survivors of the day of the Lord that are repopulating the earth, who live outside the New Jerusalem, if they accidentally kill somebody, where's the city of refuge? Will the Father establish new cities when he gets back? Because remember, it talks about in Isaiah that we'll go out and we'll build the destroyed cities.
Yeah, I mean, people will be inhabiting the remainder of the earth. It's not just going to be in that area of the New Jerusalem. So I suppose it would be modeled after what we see here, where within all those cities, there's going to also be cities for the Levites to be serving.
Because he chooses new Levites
cities,
when he comes back in Isaiah 66, 17 through 21. And the manslayers cannot run into the New Jerusalem.
Right.
Because that's not their inheritance, because that means whoever the high priest is that presides over everybody, which I think is Yeshua, he's not going to die.
Yeah. So but there's the high priest according to the order of Melchizedek.
That's what I'm thinking.
And there's the high priest within Aaron's line.
Which is why Isaiah 66 says, 17 to 21, talks about I will choose again priests and Levites among the mortals who live outside the New Jerusalem. That's the idea. There's the 2 different orders of priesthoods.
Right.
There's the Melchizedek inside the city. There's the Levites who are always going to be the priesthood on the earth outside the city, because that's the kingdom. That is the earth. But inside the city is the kingdom of heaven. So there's a differentiation there.
Right.
And I'm just guessing, as a matter of consequence, the Father would, as a natural, if this is our pattern, he would naturally choose new cities of refuge outside the New Jerusalem.
Speculation, but
it's interesting.
It's possible.
But it's a good thought. Yeah, for sure. All right. Okay. Do you want to read the next chapter?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to be in Numbers 36, guys. It's our last chapter.
All right. And the heads of the fathers' households of the family of the sons of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spoke before Moses and before the leaders, the heads of the fathers' households of the sons of Israel, and they said, The Lord commanded my Lord to give the land by lot to the sons of Israel as an inheritance, and my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of Zelophehad, our brother, to his daughters. But if they marry one of the sons of the other tribes of the sons of Israel, their inheritance will be withdrawn from the inheritance of our fathers and will be added to the inheritance of the tribe to which they belong. Thus, it will be withdrawn from our allotted inheritance. When the Jubilee of the sons of Israel comes, then their inheritance will be added to the inheritance of the tribe to which they belong. So their inheritance will be withdrawn from the inheritance of the tribe of our fathers. Then Moses commanded the sons of Israel according to the word of the Lord, saying, The tribe of the sons of Joseph are right in their statements. This is what the Lord has commanded concerning the daughters of Zelophehad, saying, Let them marry whom they wish, only they must marry within the family of the tribe of their father. Thus no inheritance of the sons of Israel shall be transferred from tribe to tribe, for the sons of Israel shall each hold to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers. Every daughter who comes into possession of an inheritance of any tribe of the sons of Israel shall be wife to one of the family of the tribe of her father, so that the sons of Israel each may possess the inheritance of his fathers. Thus, no inheritance shall be transferred from one tribe to another tribe, for the tribes of the sons of Israel shall each hold to his own inheritance. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so the daughters of Zelophehad did. Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, married their uncle's sons. They married those from the families of the sons of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained with the tribe of the family of their father. These are the commandments and the ordinances which the Lord commanded to the sons of Israel through Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan opposite Jericho.
Thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
All right. What interesting, right?
Yes.
The daughters don't want to lose their inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Right.
Because the father didn't have any sons, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, what would you think would be the most practical reason for this instruction and this conversation?
The most practical reason?
Yeah, just the most practical reason why they would have this question, and then why Moses would make this determination for them.
Well, obviously, I would think so. Each tribe gets to keep the actual inheritance that they're given.
That's right.
Because they're exactly what they just
are saying in there. So if these 4 daughters all, like they're from the tribe of Joseph, if they all married someone that was, say, from the tribe of Naphtali nearby, then those males, what would happen to that land, that possession that the women were supposed to inherit, if it went to their head of household, which is this guy from a different tribe? So then you'd have a problem with land being eaten up by other tribes. And then therefore the tribe of Joseph, or any tribe where this scenario would happen, would start to get smaller and smaller if the daughters were marrying amongst men of tribes around them, thereby officially losing actual inheritance land, through this. So in order to establish the boundaries, the father was like, through Moses, obviously through determination of, well, this is what we're going to have to do, make sure the daughters marry within their tribe. That way the boundaries stay the same. And this is what I think is interesting, because in Ezekiel 48, in the New Jerusalem, the boundaries for all the tribes are established and will never, ever change. Not only because they'll never change, because the millennial reign, nothing's ever going to stop them. No one's ever going to overcome them or take them away anymore. But also, no one's getting married at the resurrection. So everyone that's going to inherit that land, male or female, within whatever tribe you're assigned into, you never have to worry about that land going away. Just like these people never had to worry about their land going away unless they were invaded by a foreign, which is their own sin leads to them being scattered by foreign armies, which is what was prophesied and what eventually happens. But in the kingdom, in our kingdom of rest, these people get to abide in this concept, or in this what was supposed to be safety for them. They unfortunately, because of sin, forfeited that safety. But in the kingdom, though, all the boundaries that are given to the tribes, they're never going to be changed. They'll be like that forever. And so therefore, and there's also no marrying, so they don't have to worry about losing it through marriage. So it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's just another example that there's women's rights in the Bible.
There is.
Women have protections in the Bible, because I think it was a few chapters prior where these same daughters come to Moses and say, we're daughters, we're not sons. Are we still going to receive an inheritance? Right? Is it in the book of Numbers?
I believe so.
And we see another incident similar to it happen actually in the book of Joshua. But that's the thing, as someone who used to be a feminist, atheist, agnostic person who, liked to talk about how oppressive the Bible was to women, this is something that I would have assumed that women didn't have any property rights in, the Bible in the Old Testament times. But they clearly did. They brought it up saying, hey, our father only had daughters, so are we going to receive inheritance here? And of course the answer was yes. So then the next question is, all right, well, does that inheritance remain with that daughter, with that from her father's household, or does that inheritance go to another father's household when she gets married? So it's still, in a roundabout way, this is protections for women, It
is. 100%.
So they just weren't not, allotted property rights, by mere default of the fact that they, are born female. So, and that's another thing I was joking with Sean about when we were doing our study for this, is that, Yahweh, clearly had the idea of private property rights going on long before the Constitution of the United States. That's something that, in patriotic circles, people who like the Constitution talk about history and stuff, American history, will talk about how revolutionary it was for the Constitution to establish private property. Now, at that time, it was coming from, monarchs to where you never owned your land. And in modern times, we all know with taxation, we never really truly own our land. But that was a revolutionary idea at the time, unless you knew the Bible, because the father has, some clear, he is very, particular about property rights and boundary lines and respecting those things and inheriting land from, your ancestors and all of that. So I just found it kind of interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's a wonderful unique little parallel. Unfortunately, I wish the United States had retained that wonderful biblical precept, but unfortunately, it's been stolen from the people at this point. But what I think is an interesting statement is Howard Sanford said that. Now, this is something that we've talked about, but what he's bringing up, I'm going to expound upon also with a political nature of that we've seen in our lifetime and within our country. He says the high priest was a vital part of their governing in the nation of Israel. He also represented the people before God. His death was a big event. All the tribes are notified of it. Yes, that's correct. But think about it. Why are we so fascinated with the people that rule us, specifically in our country, the presidents?
Yeah.
And what is expected of these presidents, no matter which side of the political aisle you're on, at least until the days of Barack Obama, at least, what was expected of these presidents was fidelity and high amounts of moral behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's ingrained in us to expect from the leaders to be righteous.
Right.
You see what I mean? Because that's the moment they're unrighteous, we want to call them on it or write up articles about it or do exposés on it, right? Or, oh, we got you, in the White House doing something you shouldn't be doing. You see what I mean? So it's like inherently within people is this feeling, this need, this inner desire that I would suggest maybe the Father put into us, which is why he chose an elder and a man who was supposed to be better in his behavior to be a ruler over them. And that ruler was given the title of high priest. And that went all the way back to Adam. It wasn't just for the sake of playing church.
Right.
It was like inherently built into us that whoever decides to rule over us, he better be more mature than we are.
Right.
Right. This cannot be like the movie Idiocracy, and we pick a former WWE star who's drinking Brondo, and shooting off his guns. We are almost there. We're almost there. We are.
He was on the WWE.
I keep waiting for Trump to pull up some Brondo and be like, it's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave. And then pull out an AK in the Senate chamber and just start firing off from the ceiling. That'd be great. So either way, I think it's just inherently in people. Whoever your leader are, you expect of them a standard that maybe you can't even hold.
Yeah, I don't know how many liberals I've seen call out Trump for his adultery, and these are the same people who have no respect for the sanctity of marriage and don't believe there should be any kind of, definition of marriage. Most of them would probably encourage their own friends to have affairs and stuff like that. But if there's a politician leading them that they decide they don't like, well, I'm going to call him on his unrighteous behavior, even though I advocate for that all the time. So, and that's most politicians. If there's any kind of a sex scandal that goes on, no matter which side of the aisle they're on, they get attacked by people who probably don't really care at all about adultery and marriage.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So I just putting that out there. It seems like it's ingrained in humanity, basically.
Yeah, that's right, David Shearer. And they're the same people who support abortion.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, guys. If you have any questions, put them in all caps and then put them into the chat so the moderators and ourselves can quickly see them. And if you have any questions about the portion that we read tonight or anything related to the portion per se. And
yeah, this might be our shortest portion ever. There's
Trip 2776, I think the bankruptcy thing, I think that's related to the year of Jubilee. Mm-hmm. Both servants and debts could be released and relinquished. Yeah. There's also, as it mentioned here in chapter 36, verse 10 through 13, about the year of Jubilee for the land itself, which is something interesting. So, but yeah, if you do have a question, guys, put it in all caps. We'd be happy to get to it. Just make sure it's concise and to the point. Make sure, read it back to yourself that, it's a valid question. All right, Sebastian Porras is asking a great famous question. Can we wear polyester? What do you think, sweetie? Can you wear polyester?
What is that a blend of? All I know is that the Torah specifically says not to blend wool and linen. It doesn't just say mixed fabrics, and this is in two different parts, and you can look at different translations.
That's right.
It is, and look at the Hebrew. It's specifically wool and linen. So as long as polyester isn't a wool linen blend, then you're fine to wear it. I would think it would be incredibly uncomfortable, wool and linen. Both those are thick, heavy fabrics.
They are. Yeah, they are.
So.
But that comes up a lot just because people take it out of context.
Yeah,
you know?
well, and some of the translations say mixed fabrics. It's a translation problem with, not being able to make your own version of the Bible without violating copyright laws. So you guys have to remember.
And inserting their own misunderstandings. That remember,
Right.
these Bibles are translated by men who, it's one thing, like we've talked about in the past, it's one thing to translate a word to another word.
Right.
That's usually simple. But when you start translating an idea from words and their descriptions to another language, that's when it gets complicated. And that's what requires you to understand the context of the idea you're trying to translate. For example, my father used to go and do missions work in Russia before it was communism was gone. Back when
Before
it was still
the USSR
right. Back
collapsed,
when it was
let's
people,
put it that
the reason
way.
why I don't say that, a lot of people don't know what that is. Before Russia went away with communism and they started doing this weird Commonwealth thing. So back in the day, in the late 90s, my dad, from 86 to 91, he was going over to Russia, and then he focused more on the Ukraine after the Soviet Union fell. But he was going over to Greek Orthodox churches and trying to actually preach the gospel. And he had an interpreter next to him. And he said one of the times that he went over there that he was at the hotel room the night before with his little book of translations from Russian to English, and he was wanting to learn a few phrases to say to open up his message at service the next day. And he goes to the service the next day, prepared with a couple of these phrases in Russian. And he says, I don't know the phrase, but he basically wanted to tell the people that God loves you. That's what he wanted to tell them.
Yeah.
Because these people were starving for God in this culture. It was communism and atheism as a state religion. And the translator starts laughing, and all the people in the crowd, there's thousands of people there, they start laughing. And he looks at the translator and he's like, what happened? And the translator said, you said God wants to make love to them. So translating things from one language to another requires understanding the context of the words you're trying to translate. It's not as simple as translating one word to another language. So yes, translators have read the passages in Hebrew and they say, wool and linen, don't mix them together. But the translator comes in there and they've heard all their life the term mixed fabrics. And they're like, oh, this is the moment I put in the term mixed fabrics, because they've been heard something out of context all their life. They don't understand it.
It's kind of like that verse we went over. I'm pretty sure it was in one of our portions about how we've always thought the verse is don't sow your field with two kinds of seed. And then we looked into it and it's actually your vineyard specifically.
Right.
So it wasn't just any field, because gardening season comes around every year and every Torah person inevitably thinks, can I make a big garden bed with a whole bunch of different vegetables in it? Or do I have to have all my vegetables in different garden beds to keep them separate? So when we looked into that, actually, if you look at the Hebrew, if you look at multiple translations, it's your vineyard that you're not supposed to sow two kinds of diverse seed in. So yes, you can have your garden box, you can have your greenhouse, you can have your big garden plot out in your field. It's okay to sow that field with multiple kinds of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
Just don't do it with your vineyard.
That's right. Otherwise, think about this. This would mean that each community within the tribes would have to travel great distances just to get to the cucumbers.
Right. Yes.
If every field had to be one seed alone, then you would have to be, not only did you do a great job explaining the actual text, so make sure you remember what she said, but I'm just expounding for how unpractical it would be for what people try to take it out of its context and make it say. You would literally have to be like, oh, well, this end of the tribe of Joseph, they're planting rhubarb and zucchinis, and then next to them is corn, and then broccoli, and then some onions.
Everyone has the carrots over there.
And then you're like, so like, where do we get our corn? Where do we get our, you would have to, there would be, ridiculously long distances for the markets to get their food. It's just, that's not what the Bible says.
Father is not unreasonable in his instructions.
That's right.
So if there's a certain instruction that you hear that sounds, gosh, that'd be like impossible to keep, then you're probably hearing the wrong version, someone's, filter of that instruction.
That's right. All right. I didn't see any other questions just yet. But if you don't have any, that's great. Hopefully the scriptures speak for themselves. That would be wonderful. It would make our job super easy. Just read the Bible.
Yeah.
Be great. But as always, guys, on Sunday, Ken and I are going to start Honor of Kings Season 3, so don't miss that. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. No, wait. Yeah, that's 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's 7 p.m. Ken's time, Atlantic time. So don't miss that. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be doing Honor of Kings premiere season 3. And we're going to be reviewing the first book of Adam and Eve. Exciting, exciting,
Dun, dun,
controversial.
dun.
Yes. Oh, Howard Sanford's asking a question. Should Messianic Christians tolerate the Talmud being referenced as an authority? I would say no.
Did Yeshua reference it as an authority? I don't think so.
This is why we don't call ourselves Messianics.
Yeah, this is why we don't go to a Messianic synagogue. I mean, we don't want everything bathed in the traditions of Judaism, you know. So we're just that's not really our style.
Yeah, because the Talmud, I mean, all the rabbis in there, they're not accepting Christ.
Right.
This is not something that that's not a book. I know it's a mixed bag of commentary from case law and from rabbinical teachings, but the way it's used, the way it's referenced in not just its cultural application, but also it's synonymous with modern day rabbis who practice Judaism. It's not a book that I would use as an authority for anything.
Yeah. What's Hebrew for no bueno?
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. In fact, there is a spot in there in the Talmud. I need to go find it. I don't have a Talmud, but I was talking with a rabbi on Facebook, and I was asking, is there anything in the Talmud that gives modern day practitioners of Judaism the ability to think they don't need a high priest? And he said yes. And he gave me the actual address in the Talmud where there was a rabbi in the 1st century whose disciples were asking him after the temple was destroyed in AD 70. The disciples of this particular rabbi were asking, what are we going to do now with the temple destroyed and there's no high priest? No one can make atonement for us with sacrifices. Well, instead of saying, Yeshua is your high priest, he went to minister atonement for you in the heavenly sanctuary above, because they reject that, because they reject the Father and they reject the Son, the truth. This rabbi, in turn, he responded to them, oh, just your good deeds now can make atonement for you.
Yep.
So in case you've ever wondered why they feel scriptural precedence, and it's not scripture, but they feel justified, if I should say it like that, and they feel supported from within their religion to say they don't need Jesus, it's because that's why they don't teach on the priesthood within their religion.
Right.
And that's why they do have rabbinical thoughts written down in the Talmud that gives them an excuse to reject Jesus. And it's because they view these rabbis' commentary as law of God. Right. It's bad. It's what Yeshua was talking about, where, you take your traditions that are just doctrines of men and you're placing them above the commandments of God. So that's, definitely stay away from the Talmud, in my opinion. All right, guys. Thanks for the awesome questions. Yes, Trip, you're right. There is a lot of evil stuff in there too. We would have the video pulled actually if we told you about all the stuff that's in there. It's crazy. That's how bad the stuff is that's in there. It tells you what you can do and you can't do. It's horrible. It's not a book. It's not a set apart book at all, in my opinion.
And it's certainly not the level of Torah where we should all be submitting to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone that's I think that's Zephaniah 3:9. He will restore to his people pure lip and pure speech.
He will do that post-resurrection, guys.
Post-resurrection.
We are still under the curse of Babel right now.
That's right.
Still have multiple languages all through the world. Okay, so I just want to lovingly remind you that prophecy is post-resurrection.
Yeah, there is context in that chapter. Stephen Belk is asking, is Septuagint better than Masoretic? What version of the Bible do you prefer? We get this asked to us often, I should say. The Septuagint is very unique to compare as an alternate translation to the Masoretic. We definitely like it. We feel like it brings a lot of clarity to some confusing passages. Is it better? I think that for apologetics, I think it's better. I still learned everything 95% of everything that you hear me talk about, I still learned from the traditional English translations from the Masoretic text. It's all in there. It just takes it's just not as clear as the Septuagint, so it takes a lot more study. That's why I, found the Septuagint later in my life. I was very frustrated that it took me that long to find the Septuagint because it made some things so clear because of the way it's spoken in the actual translation. But remember, it is a translation. And as I've talked about in previous videos, The Septuagint is not a pure translation either. Unfortunately, we don't have a pure translation. The Pharisees have been actively at work for 2,000 years, guys. So the Masoretic, which was created around the 9th century AD, was a compilation of other Greek texts. And those Greek texts were an offshoot from the 4th century from Jerome, who had taken some of those from the Septuagint texts that were available from the 1st century. Now, it's like a rabbit trail, right? Of just like things going further back. You get back to the 1st century and you realize there was like 3 or 4 versions of the Septuagint, because the very original Septuagint, the Pharisees of that day did not like, because how much it supported Yeshua and the prophecies about him that were fulfilled. So therefore, they commissioned to have their own versions of the Septuagint created so they could use those and pass those around. Because remember, all the scriptures were just in Greek at one point. This was around the 1st century AD. Yes, they knew Hebrew, they knew Aramaic. Yes, there's manuscripts of Hebrew and Aramaic, but as far as the widespread scriptures, majority of them were done through manuscripts and writings in Greek. This is why the Septuagint was so popular for such a long time, because the common language that all the people used for trade and commerce was Greek. So therefore, you would have the writings in Greek. So unfortunately, the Septuagint that was originally commissioned by King Ptolemy of ancient Egypt in the 3rd century BC is not the actual Septuagint that we have today. So I'm giving you a 3-hour history lesson in about 3 minutes. I apologize for being brief, but just the thing that we like to do the best is compare all the translations. Because we know the Masoretic has some issues, the Septuagint has some issues, even the newer ones like the ESV, the RSV, the things like that, they all have issues, right? So therefore, it's good to compare all of them, and you can help find, like there's Bible Gateway will do that for you, Bible Hub will do that for you, where you can actually see like 16 different comparisons of the same verse, and you can quickly see the differences in them, just scan them up and down. It's very easy. We did it this afternoon.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. I mean, as far as what Sean and I prefer, if there's a serious discrepancy between the Masoretic and the Septuagint, we might be more inclined to lean towards what the Septuagint says, only because it's older. But we wouldn't necessarily say one is, quote, better than the other. The other thing is that if an anti-missionary is around talking to you about the New Testament contradicting parts of the Old Testament, always go check the Septuagint, because 9 times out of 10, it's because the New Testament was actually quoting the Septuagint.
That's right.
And not the Masoretic translation that came all that time after, where there was some lying pen of the scribes going on, where they were altering things deliberately to hide the fact that Yeshua fulfilled so many prophecies.
Yeah,
so
we did a show on that. It's called Proving the Pharisees Remove Scripture to Hide Yeshua. It's one of our Milk and Meat presentations from like 3 months ago. It's in our Milk and Meat playlist, so go check that out if you're interested further. And I actually show verses that are different and why. But thank you for expounding, sweetie. That's what I meant by to use the Septuagint for apologetics, because the anti-missionaries don't read the Septuagint.
No.
They just look at the Masoretic and they're like, well, look, it's different than the Old Testament. Well, that's because the Greek New Testament writers were quoting the Septuagint Old Testament.
And even the anti-Paul crowd will be like, oh, look, he's totally misquoting the scripture. And then you're like, well, actually, if you go to the Septuagint, he's quoting it just fine.
Yeah, perfectly, actually.
Yeah.
Because they spoke Greek. In fact, even in Acts 22, there's a moment where Paul says to the crowd, can I speak Greek? Or do you guys speak Greek, or they speak Hebrew?
Yeah.
And then he goes and starts speaking Greek to everybody, because they all spoke various languages, just like in Europe today, guys. I know most of us who live in the United States don't know more than one language. That's just the statistical reality. But if you go over to Europe, they know like 5 or 6 languages.
Yeah,
it's
North
a part
Africa
of
too.
They're part of their life.
Yeah.
They just do it for regular trade and commerce because the countries are so close together. It was the same way during the days of the New Testament in the 1st century. So you're welcome, Stephen Bow. Hopefully that was a decent, thorough answer for you. So looks like we've got a question. Sebastian Porce is asking, was Jesus in Sheol for 3 days after he died? Yes. Yep. He's in the heart of the earth, 3 days and 3 nights. That's what that would mean. So Trip 2776 is asking, after death, was it 40 days before Jesus ascended to heaven?
I thought it was 40 days after his resurrection.
Yeah. That's what we thought too. So 40 days after his resurrection.
3 days after his death. Then.
Yeah. Yep. Well, everyone,
Any questions
I don't
today?
see a lot of other questions. So if that's, we appreciate everyone being here. We'll probably step out and enjoy Shabbat.
Yeah, I guess as we head out, aside from our prayer request about the fires going on here, Sean and I are also looking to move here in the next few weeks out to Texas.
Yeah.
In the Houston area, and we're just starting to feel the pressure of it's a couple weeks away, and we really want to make sure that we have a place to go. Yeah. And I think everybody's familiar with that rigmarole of trying to find a place to rent, going through the applications, and just finding the right place. And so
it's a little more difficult when you can't do a showing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you can't meet in person and build rapport with the people. So if you guys could just lift us up for favor, and finding the right home that, the Father wants us in out there, and for our dogs. We have to be real particular about the place we look for, because one of our dogs just lives outside. He's not an inside dog at all. So if you could just lift us up for that situation, we're both kind of feeling the anxiety a little bit about as we get closer and closer to the day that we're supposed to be out of this house. Yeah. So, because we already signed some papers.
All right, this will be our last question before we sign off, okay? Miss Bonnie Miller is asking, is there sin in the millennial reign and after?
Great question.
Yes. Because remember, the people that live outside the New Jerusalem are normal people.
Right. Well, during the millennial reign, yeah. But after, no.
Well, I'm getting there. I'm sorry. I'm getting to the after part. But yes, as far as the millennial reign, remember, the kingdom of heaven comes down. The New Jerusalem comes down to the start of the millennial reign. This is the inheritance of the saints. This is why we rule and reign within the priesthood that Yeshua has, and we rule and reign on the earth over the survivors of the millennial reign. So therefore, the kingdom has to be on the ground at the beginning of the millennial reign for us to rule and reign with Christ. We don't rule and reign from above the firmament. We rule and reign on the ground for the survivors' sake, so they can learn how to behave. And this is what Isaiah 2:2-5 explains. All the nations will come to the mountain of the Lord, which is the New Jerusalem, to learn Torah, to learn the behavior of the Son and the Father. And so we're going to help teach them that.
Right.
Which inherently means they're going to be messing up.
Right.
If they're learning how to not sin, that means they come with bad sinful patterns in their life, and we're going to be helping them. And this is how the earth will have peace for 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. Now, after the millennial reign, at the end of the millennial reign is this second resurrection. So it's at this point where Satan, all the unclean, in my opinion, unclean spirits are already gone, but Satan and everything that was in hell that's unrighteous is brought before Yeshua, judged and thrown in the lake of fire. Everyone that was righteous, that had died during the millennial reign, that was a normal human, they participate in the resurrection of the righteous at the second resurrection. So they're given eternal life. So that means that group plus the first resurrection group that happened 1,000 years earlier, they're now all righteous. They all have the behavior of Jesus forever. So therefore, they will never sin again either. So after the millennial reign, there's no more sin on the earth. And the whole earth, not just the New Jerusalem, but the whole earth will be inhabited and inherited by the righteous.
Right. The resurrected saints.
Hopefully that's a short, good explanation for you, sister. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tripp. I really appreciate you, brother or sister. I'm not sure by your handle, but I really appreciate you. That's a great blessing. Thank you so much for being here, for asking good questions. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great night. Thanks for watching this Milk and Meat episode where we try to finally our long lost Kingdom Portions episode.
We finally finished it. Kingdom Portions, that's a wrap.
Yeah, I'll put this in the Kingdom Portions playlist, and that way you can praying out the video descriptions, and you can just go week by week if you'd like. So we really appreciate everybody.
The whole season.
Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for praying for us. It's a great help, and we hope that you have a great Shabbat.
Love you guys.
See you guys later.